and welcome to Season 2, Episode 1 of Keeping House Alive, the podcast edition. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a really good episode with somebody that has house music history and it's going to help us build a nice picture and journey with his own stories. He's coming from behind the scenes to behind the decks. I'm not gonna tell you who he is yet, but he's very special in the house music industry and scene, record labels, producing, DJing, and everything. If you don't know who we are, probably because it's been a while. Well, first, thank you, Miami Community College, for having us again. This is our second season, but it's theirs ninth season. Fun applause for you. Thank you very much for having and for trusting and for keeping up with my craziness. I am PATI, and I will be your host today and almost every day, I guess. So if you don't know who we are, we became a movement, but we started right here. This is our house. Miami Community Radio and Dear Eleanor are our house because this started as a thought, as a concept, as an idea that became a podcast. We had a few episodes. We loved how it went. People were asking for more. And then the whole concept kind of like progressed to activations, warehouse parties. And my favorite part, aside from here, is the Art Basel exhibits. The Art Basel exhibits are amazing. We do it every year, and we kind of take over a motel room and we paint the story of how house music was, born, and the progression of house music, how we got here. This year, stay tuned. We have a lot to talk about, and let's see how it comes to life. I want to talk a little bit about the beginnings of house music per se. For those who haven't tuned in before and are curious about really how house music started and what is house music? What is it all about, really? House music started after, to make long story short, after disco died back in the early 80s. The disco was kind of frowned upon and then became the sensation of the 70s, mid 70s, late 70s, and somehow by a group of people that weren't agreeing of what was happening, it kind of like they shut it down. And it started in warehouses, and it started with the minority. It started with black, gays, Latinos, just wanting to be free, just wanting to enjoy the music, just wanted to be themselves and express themselves however they were. When disco died, a lot of genres were born. One of them, house music. And house music wasn't called house music at the beginning. It was a feeling. That's why when you're explaining house music, you're explaining it as a feeling. Why? Because it is a mixture of not only genres, but cultures, but messages that, DJs and producers were playing back in the day, usually at warehouses and secluded places and basements, and they were just sharing good tracks. Most of them were either disco or hip hop, freestyle, and a blend of that became house music. So, can you hear me now? I think we went off. Yeah, we're good. Okay, sorry about that. We're live. So house music was born out of that, and a lot of people say house music is from Chicago. And I always want to say this because there's a part of me that is, although I was born and raised in the Dominican Republic, I am a New Yorker. And I'll tell you this. House music got its name in Chicago because of the warehouse, because Frankie Knuckles was playing this thing that nobody knew how to call, and they called it the house music because they were playing at the warehouse. But here's the thing. Frankie Knuckles was best friends with Larry Levan, and Larry Levan was the guy. I think he was, and maybe my first guest can like help me uh, with this story better than me. But Larry Levan was the first DJ that had a club made for him. They built this thing, this garage. That's why it was called the Paradise Garage, and they did it for him. The booth, the sound, the dance floor, everything. So it was they wanted him to play. So he was very involved in the construction and the designing of the sound of how this went. 1977, the owner of the warehouse in Chicago drove down to New York hunting Larry Levan to come to the warehouse. He was in the middle of, brewing this project, the Paradise Garage, and he said, I'm already tied into this and I'm super invested in this, but I have the person for you. And that was his best friend, Frankie Knuckles. So Frankie Knuckles from the Boogie Down Bronx went up to Chicago and started playing at the warehouse. This thing that people didn't know what to call. This thing that people didn't know where it came from. Where did it come from? New York. It came from the Loft. It came from the Garage Band. It came from Studio 54. It came from New York. We just weren't calling it that. We were calling it, or they were calling it, good music. Because it was just good music. It was a good selection of tracks, of music. You were there for the love of music. So when people say house is from Chicago, yeah, house is from Chicago. But mainly house got its name in Chicago. House was born in New York. And New York is house music's house, according to me and according to stories. So let's go. That's the beginning of house music. Let's go to the 80s, late 80s, 90s, which is a great era for house music, if you ask me. That's when I, as a kid, found out house music. And I didn't know what I was listening to it. To be honest with you, I thought I was listening to techno because I was listening to Technotronic because I was a kid. And then, like, the beat is Technotronic. I lived in DR. Nobody knew that. Like, we got only commercial music. And my parents will call this techno music, the music that the kids are listening to that we don't know what the hell it is. So, I started listening to Snap, Black Box, CNC Music Factory. I remember when Proyecto Uno started making Merengue House. They would take these freestyle songs and then we'll make it to merengue. So it became Merengue House. And I kept liking this, but I grew up there and I was a kid. So I was kind of prone to what was given to me on the radio. Then I had family living in New York. That's why I say I'm part New Yorker from my heart and from my soul. And in the summer times, I started listening to this, whatever that was. I didn't pay much attention as a kid, as a teenager. You're not picking and choosing. You like the trends or whatever. I will buy, and actually, my first cassettes were Black Box and CNC Music Factory. My first CD was Snap, if my memory serves me well. And then the 90s came. The 90s was amazing. The genre had a name. It was house music. And there were a lot of good DJs out there putting out good production and good tracks, a blending of a lot of things. New York was a house of it. Because I was exposed to New York, you got Little Louis Vega, Junior Sanchez, Junior Vasquez, Roger Sanchez. You had a lot of growing up, like late 90s, maybe early 2000. Peter Roffer, you got Jonathan Peters and Sound Factory. To me, it was amazing. When I had the age that I was able to go to the clubs, imagine my mind. It exploded. But not only for the music, I loved going to the clubs because what I think is different from before than now is that every time I went to a club to listen to house music, I was exposed to something I didn't hear before and I did not know how to get. You didn't hear it before. You didn't know who it was. So you would emerge on that, on the scene, the costumes, the drag queens, the dances, the dancers. My God, I miss the dancers. When I used to go there, like there were rounds of people like just dancing, and they were great because they had, the houses, and the houses would like compete, and they were really, really, really good dancers. They danced to the rhythm of whatever the DJ was playing. But to be honest, before I really became a house head, and I don't know exactly when that happened, what I was listening to was rock, pop. I was really, really into rock, like pop rock. But as I started going out and finding what was happening in these clubs, like imagine me, little PATI, in Sound Factory in New York, a club that is 5 stories up, Twilo, Roxy, Limelight, ladies and gentlemen. Limelight was this church, and really, it was like almost like Larry Levan's thing. I mean, you had your Sunday service in there, where you just got lost in time. You didn't even know when you came in or when you got out. You just went and did that. And that to me was absolutely amazing. And another thing, you listened to one track. You didn't know when one ended. You didn't know when the other one started. You listened to one track. It was a long 12-hour track, but it was amazing. So back to the 90s. Let me see if I find something here. I'll tell you right now. Do I have it here? Maybe not. Maybe I'm trying to look for something that is not here right now. No, okay. But there are a couple of songs in that really marked the 90s. And I want to find something here, and excuse me that I don't have it ready because we just got into this, and I got right behind this decks, and I should have it here, and I'm running, and I don't see it. That's fine. That's what happened when you're live. But there were a couple of tracks in the 90s that kind of paved, and they take you there, and you hear them, and you're like, oh my God, this is another golden era of house music, and also dance music. And those records, you can play them 20 years from now, and it's been more than 20 years now, today, and they sound amazing. The song that we started this episode today, I don't even know. So that's what a good track is. And they're timeless. You know what I'm saying? It's house is a feeling. But enough for me talking, enough for me saying all these facts that, some of them I was there, but I wasn't really there. I wasn't building this. I wasn't in the clubs in the late 80s and the 90s. You know who was there? My next guest. And my next guest was rubbing shoulders with all these people, producing, building a record label, promoting, marketing all these tracks. And I think it kind of like, he wasn't expecting this in a way, but he was, because he probably knew how good everything was. But I think like when you're that young and you're dealing with something as big as massive, you know, but you don't know. I'll put this. And I don't know if this relates to him, but I know that he knows what this is. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Keeping House Alive, episode 1 of season 2, Annie Phearce.
Woo!
Thank you for coming. I just put this track in here because just to refresh your mind of how. Those were the golden days. Yeah, sit down. course you were in the shot. You are the shot, amigo.
I've taken many shots.
How are you, honey?
Having me once again. Hearing you talk about everything with house,
I know, and you were there.
I was blessed enough to have lived it. I was listening to the first house record. I originally started out freestyle music, and when I heard the first house record, this is where I'm
I mean, how could you not?
It was so new and so fresh and just, I mean, I grew up in disco, back in the disco studio before days, but there was something about house that was just so, it was kind of like punk. It was new, it was different.
It's different.
And I grew up a punk rocker, so like anything new, going against the grain was something that
Absolutely, and yeah, it was new, it was different, and all that, but it was great. It was just great, and it was like I said, like a mixture of so many things that even if you were like a punk rocker or even if you were into freestyle, it kind of blended together, and that's the magic of house. Now, let me ask you this because, like you said, you were really into punk and rock and all that. And I know you started early, and one of your probably inspirations to start, or at least somebody that you looked up to, and correct me if I'm wrong, was probably your brother Nick.
Yeah, my brother started out as a freestyle producer.
Okay.
And, when house music came, we just made the transition
Into house. So tell me a little bit right before that. What were you doing? How old were you when that happened? How was music kind of impacting your path? Because it did in such a way that you just completely submerged into it, although you were doing professionally something different later on. But right before you saw your brother doing this and that, and like kind of like also figuring out, because I know for what I've read and heard from you, this thing that happened with Nick happened really, really early. What, 12, 13, 14 years old?
So I started by going to Studio 54, the gay nights, which were Thursday and Sunday. A DJ by the name of Robbie Leslie was the resident.
Okay.
He still plays here in Florida in Milton Manors. And I would just go to Studio and either be on the dance floor or, sitting in the balcony just watching him play.
Okay.
And that's when I started to fall in love with the energy and dance music. And then fast forward a few years, house music comes on from disco to, the transition went from disco to Italo disco to freestyle. And then when I first heard the first house records, belonging to a record pool back then, you get everything first as a promo. And I remember saying that this was it. This was going to take over the future. I graduate college, and it just so happens that Eric Murillo at the time was trying to get into house music, and we started producing house together. I told him, you pay me, you give me credit, and I'll help you out, because he always used to call me over to his studio. And then,
So you were friends from before?
yeah, we grew up together in grammar school. So grammar school, high school. Then I went off to college, graduated with a marketing degree, and when I graduated, it was when he had started, producing, and he wanted to get something on Strictly Rhythm, and he invites me over to the studio one day, and he was working on the first reel-to-reel record, which we had done with Mark Anthony, but we couldn't use his name because he was signed to Atlantic. So I told him, listen, you pay me, you give me credit, and I'll help you with whatever you're producing. Because I had already started producing from, 3-4 years prior to that. And, I was like the big DJ in town and all that stuff. So, he always looked for my opinion. And, we connected in a way in the studio, and, we worked on a bunch of Strictly Rhythm releases at the time. And then I Like to Move It blows up. And, we're sitting in his living room one day, and he goes, oh, by the way, I just came back from Europe. This record is,
blowing up.
Yeah, I just did a stadium, an arena, and there were like 20, 30,000 people singing my record, and none of us believed him. And we're like, yeah, shut up, we'll show or whatever. So then he goes, opens a duffel bag, takes a VHS tape, pops it in the VCR, and sure enough, there were 20, 30,000 people going, I like to move it, move it. And I was like, this is serious.
VHS.
Yeah, VHS. Yeah. And I'm like, this is serious. We need to like, get into like, money making mode, I guess.
Yeah.
So then I started handling all the bookings and promotion and everything having to revolving around the group Real to Real. And I did that till we did our second album, and then everybody was like, what are we gonna do without it? Because they wanted to get a different management in Europe, to take them to that other step.
For Strictly.
Well,
Or what a different.
I Like to Move It came out on Strictly in America,
Yeah, uh-huh.
and then it was licensed all over the world, different labels, depending on the territory, a different record label had it. So the idea was to take me and I'll go work for Strictly Rhythm. At the time, Strictly was, still, they were already established as a label, but, the paperwork and the infrastructure at the office was a little unorganized. So I was already working in corporate America. I mean, my sophomore year in high school, so I was good at writing memos and organizing files and all that.
So before you were doing any organization for Strictly, you were doing something completely unrelated to music, not to.
Yeah. I was working in corporate America. Finance, Wall Street. I never had a really shitty job because I started building my resume sophomore year in high school. So when I graduated from college, my resume was impeccable because I didn't want to start in the back of the line when I graduated college. So I had built up 8 years of experience in corporate America. So then when I went into, when I graduated, the idea was to start my own advertising and marketing agency. But it just so happened that I Like to Move It blows up. They need somebody to handle like the paperwork and all that. And Eric and I told him, if you could pay me this salary, I'll handle all the business during the day, and at night we continue producing in the studio.
And that's how you left corporate America.
That's how I left corporate America.
We have that's another thing we have in common because my background is advertising and marketing.
There you go.
But like when you're a creative, I think music goes really hand in hand to like anything, like because what I do is like art direction and creative director, and now I'm in marketing and like and to me and I help with other projects and my friends and whatever it is, how it is, you help, and I always want to be in charge of like the visual is fine, it's always want to be in charge of music, everything that has to do with music. But another thing that links us is that you were born in New York, right?
Yeah, I was born in New York.
But you are really
Dominican.
The Dominican. Because that's another thing. House music was built by Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, and blacks.
Yeah.
If you think about it. All the producers back then, like, that were doing something notable were us. They look like us.
Absolutely. You were talking about Frankie Knuckles before.
Yes.
So before I moved to Miami, I was running a label called Subliminal Records, and we had a party every Thursday called Subliminal Sessions.
Oh, I remember the Subliminal Sessions.
The first it was me, Eric Murillo, and Derek Carter. We were the first residents. And then from Derek Carter, we made Frankie Knuckles a resident. So, he would play along with us. And, the man, just watching him play, I mean, he was a sweetheart. And just the way he programmed the night, I would study him. And, he was, always just the sweetest guy. And you see how he would build the night from the beginning to
the journey.
The journey, yeah. And that's what, house music was about, was, building that journey over the span of 5-10 hours.
Yeah, or longer.
Yeah.
And that was normal before. Like you had no openers. You could share you could share the decks, but you had no openers and not closing. Everybody was the same, and everybody was playing for hours and hours and hours. Like you would come to the club and leave, and the same DJ was there, and you would probably be doing what today we call back to back. It wasn't called back to back, right?
No,
We're just playing music.
Just playing music, and I mean, the closest I had to that here in Miami, I was doing 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. at Blue Martini.
Holy.
And I would have a 45-minute breaks in between the bands, but I would play the whole day, and it allowed me to keep better control of the programming.
Absolutely.
Where I'm starting a certain way, and you're playing according to the hour, and then at a certain time where it was party time, you went into a different gear,
Absolutely. And I think because of that, and because we're having shorter
Attention span.
sets in attention spam. Everybody is into that. Now we'll get into that later because I also want to go into a journey and kind of like I want to build into that. But that's why like everybody's in a hurry now to play something because you have 1 hour, 2 hours at the best, and everybody wants to put out their best in that time.
That's right.
And the openers don't know how to open.
No, because they're playing peak hour music because they think that's
At 10 p.m.
That's all they have.
That's all they have.
They want to show everybody who they are, and it doesn't,
And also, and I feel, kind of bad for the people that don't know how to play it on an empty room or build it up because that's what makes you the DJ.
That's right. That journey.
That
which
journey.
everybody talks about. It's cliche, but it's true.
It's true. I mean, you gotta start with an empty dance floor, and you gotta let them come in, have a drink.
The night evolves.
Yeah, listen to you and be like, hey, I like that one. Maybe they're shy to dance the first
That's
or
right.
to a third track.
That's
You
right.
gotta give them time.
Right.
But some people are like, oh my God, that's a failure. Nobody wanna like whatever. And then when I left, people started coming. Like, yeah. But if you're a good opener, you could do whatever you want.
That's right.
You could do whatever you want because it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're patient enough, I think, in my opinion, if you're patient enough, that's what makes you or one of the things that makes you a great DJ. Because and thank you because you invited me the other day to play with you, and we started. And there's no rush. Just take them.
It's like if you're with someone, are you and you're gonna eventually make love. You start out kissing the ear and the neck, and
You
it's
build
the
up.
smell, and you build it to the climax.
Claro.
Most people they wanna right away, start
Boom.
playing bangers, and I know I could move a crowd and keep a crowd opening if you're playing interesting music without having to play the bangers.
Absolutely.
So even when I play with anybody, I'll get there 5 minutes before. Whatever they played, I know that I probably have different music, and I'm
For
going to
sure.
be able to pick it up and carry the torch to the end. But everybody, the instant gratification that's taken over the culture has permeated into everything, including DJing.
Absolutely, and it kind of like, do I feel bad? But I also it pains me to see that we're losing that because that was one of the greatest things. And as I was saying before, one of the things that actually I really enjoyed about going to a club and like listening to this, that I later kind of found out that I was a househead, was listening to songs that I never heard before. And listening to something new, and probably not even knowing the DJ, because although probably because I was new in New York, the DJ was very well known in the city, it wasn't well known to me because I was the new one.
Right.
So I was just listening to this God playing this spiritual thing that kind of sometimes, I'll tell you, it paralyzed me.
Yeah.
Like you would just stand there and be like, anda pa'l carajo.
Well, the way the music is produced, it's repetitive and rhythmic, so it kind of like puts you in a trance.
Yeah.
Later, trance music came out.
Yeah.
But that repetitive beat with the bass line, and then eventually it gets to the drop, and that's what captures you and puts you in that state.
Absolutely. It is designed for that.
That's right.
That's why it's great. And like you say, like, it sounds cliche, but the journey is because even the songs, even one track has a journey.
Yeah.
Now I see tracks that are like less than 2 minutes.
Yeah, no. I produced a remix for someone, and I produced it. Let's say 6 minutes, and then I had to go back and listen to it again, and I started editing it, making it shorter, because I know that DJs nowadays they won't let it play. So, I put the record out. A friend of mine gets the promo, and they call me going, "My God, what why is it longer?" They really liked it. And I'm like, I'm not producing for you. You're old already. These kids, they want it, straight to the point. So I cut it down to like 5 minutes, 4:58 exactly. And I had to explain myself because they really liked the production, but they wish it would have been longer. And I'm like, I had to change it You know, I mean, I'm producing for a new generation of people.
Absolutely.
And you got to stay, up on
Current.
not only your game, but how the music is played right now. And unfortunately, that's one of the drawbacks of right now. Because back then, you could play a 10, 11, 12 mix, of a track.
That was normal.
And that was okay. Yeah.
I mean, when I see tracks and they're like 5-6 minute long, and I'm like, it's
Yeah.
gonna hurt them, but I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a blast. I mean, I'm playing like. Actually, when I see I find a new track that I really like, and I see 2 minutes and a half, and I'm like, why? Let me enjoy it. Let it
Yeah.
breathe. Let me dance to it. Like I don't want to change. If it's good, I want to dance for 5 minutes. This thing.
I think what happened, in addition to the world changing, when the hip hop explosion took place, you had quote unquote open format DJs. You had these hip hop radio DJs playing house like they play hip hop, where it's like a verse, chorus, and out. So that definitely affected
The rhythm.
the genre, where house was popular, and then when hip hop came and there was that thing that exploded called open format, you had non-house DJs playing house tracks like they were playing hip hop tracks, and it affected definitely the genre.
Absolutely, but also that is a beautiful thing that a DJ or a producer from another genre is playing house because it fits so well. It
was part of the open format where you're playing a
Yeah.
little bit of house, a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of Latin, a little bit of reggaeton. I mean, you're playing everything, but the way they blended and mixed house music, it wasn't like a regular house DJ would in a nightclub. He would mix it the way they're mixing hip hop, in and out, in and out,
in and out. Yeah, because that's their rhythm,
That's right.
in and out,
Yeah.
and which is fun. But I'm still in that old school kind of mentality. Yeah, I know that people want to change at 2-3 minutes and like, but if it's a really good track,
You gotta let it ride.
you gotta let it ride.
You gotta let it ride.
Why would you change it? I mean, they're dancing. I mean, it doesn't really matter. And like, you want to take them on that ride. You
Right.
want to be on that ride with them.
Yep.
If you're feeling the music, if you're going through it,
Right.
they're gonna go through it with you.
Well, we come from a generation that's how it was. This new generation that didn't experience that, they don't have that as a reference
No.
like we do.
Yeah.
We have a reference point.
Yeah.
We grew up eating filet mignon.
Yeah.
These kids grew up eating McDonald's.
For sure.
So we could talk about filet mignon, but they never had it.
So they don't know.
And if you bring it up to them, they'll be like, filet mignon, I don't know. I'm happy with my McDonald's.
Yeah.
So that I've played in different venues where the manager will come up to me, and to them I sound different because I'm not doing that 30-second
boom,
thing
boom,
back
boom,
to
boom.
back to back to back. And I got to explain to them, I'm different, and people enjoy the music. The main complaint I get from people nowadays is when they go out, they're not given the opportunity to enjoy the whole song.
No.
Because it's that 30-second, 45-second thing, in and out, and we don't come from that era.
No.
So our reference point is very different from the new generation.
And that is one of the things that also inspired me to start keeping house alive, because I wanted to keep that main kind of like raw spirit and kind of the motivation of why house tracks were made. Keeping that essence, like the progression of house music, I don't mind. What's happening today, I enjoy a lot. I dance a lot whenever I can. I'm actually making more of an effort to be on the dance floor because we're always here. And I'm like, I need to remember why I'm here.
Right.
I'm here because I enjoyed it there so much that curiosity got me to learn how to do this. I'm basically self-taught. So I'm not this kind of DJ that is always playing filters and like effects or whatever, because I'm not super versed at it, and I'm not afraid to say it. Like if the song is great, blend it good, have a great music selection, and just let it breathe. But I'm also from that era, and I enjoy that. When the pandemic hit And when we were starting getting out, I was super into. I am as a general thing in life, super into documentaries. But I got super into disco. Obviously, went into house. So everything that is out there, I probably have watched it. And then it came one day that I'm like, so great. What are you gonna do with this information? You gotta tell it to the kids. It's like almost like my mom or my grandmother telling me stuff of how it was made before. If we don't pass the message along, they're gonna next time gonna do 30-second tracks. We can't let that happen. Now if you wanna play, go ahead. But we cannot let the genre to be that when the soul and the spirit and the motivation of doing that was to actually go in this absolutely beautiful journey that you lost yourself. People were trying to, express themselves and be free and dress however they wanted and be with whoever they wanted. And just for those few hours being inside these four walls that became their church.
Yep.
It was kind of a service. And
so to your point, I was off social media for 7 years. I'm not a big fan of social media, but I have to be on there. So, after being off 7 years, when I got back on, I was like, what am I going to post? A selfie or whatever? And I said to myself, I started posting these house stories that I would tell people. I call it house music history. So if you go to my profile and type house music history, they'll come up. And me having been in the music business and so connected the way I was, I'm like, I have all these stories of all these wonderful moments that took place that I just happened to be present. So I started telling these stories, quote unquote. And people, this was probably like 2017, 2018. And people just were like, wow, like just, oh my God, I never knew, this is amazing. And, so whenever something came into my mind, I would post it on Facebook. And, people would go, they were very appreciative that I was passing this history along. Because,
absolutely.
House music isn't a genre that has like a VHS behind the music thing.
Nope.
Where, there's all these stories about these great, rock legends and pop legends. So I'm like, let me just start talking about these things. And people would always tell me, oh, you need to write more. Why don't you do a book or whatever? So, I just, if it pops into my head, I'll go online and write it and people absorb it. But that history needs to be passed down because,
absolutely.
It's such a wonderful genre and so many wonderful people that have been a part of it. If I could tell a story about I was present when this record was made or produced, or if it was a record that I signed, people want to hear that stuff nowadays,
And it's just so interesting and like you said, there is documentation about it, but it is not as much as maybe other genres because it was so underground.
Correct.
And we didn't have the cell phones and the cameras.
No, we didn't have the camera to capture it.
You couldn't have that big one and go into Paradise Garage or Twilo. You go into like a big, recorder to do that. So yeah, there is documentation, but it's very limited. So even and also that's something that caught my attention when I was watching these different documentaries. The same scenes were coming because they're not that many.
There aren't that many.
And
the
that
same footage.
it's footage, and that was also absolutely fascinating how it was underground, and you didn't have that much proof, but it was big and it was impactful what was happening inside there.
So I'll tell you I like to move it. Well, before that, the first remix I did was a record by Smooth Touch called House of Love. And it goes in my house. And that record blew up all over the world. But house was still underground. When I Like to Move It hit, we broke Beatles records in England for weeks in the charts and all. It was a phenomenon. And those were one of the first house tracks that crossed over into the pop world. Millions and it
was a phenomenon.
Oh yeah, it was and we never imagined that house music would ever become that because it was underground. It was club music. We only played records as DJs that were not on the radio, and if you did that,
no.
Yeah, you're not cool anymore.
Yeah.
And when I would travel to Europe, I would go through my bag and I would only pick whatever white labels I had because people wanted to hear you play stuff that they never heard before. It's the
Absolutely.
opposite of now, where you got to
Absolutely.
play to keep people. You got to play something that they recognize, and that change between yesterday and today. You know, it. Yeah, there's always going to be guys that have a certain stature traveling as the house DJs, where it's more like they've remained underground. But when you're playing in commercial clubs, you have like even Ultra. I mean, Ultra. When I'm hearing Gasolina played at the main stage at Ultra, that tells you how far how much the world has changed to this point.
Absolutely.
Where you have big DJs playing that on the main stage.
And people going
And
crazy.
people going crazy.
And that's fine. Let me tell you something. I'm not hating, and it's fine. And if they enjoy it, enjoy it. But like you said, it's so far from how it started, and the reason why you got into it, but the others got into it, and the others were producing that. When you hear something that commercial, you're
blows
like,
you away.
yeah, it's like, what is happening here? Which is great.
Right.
I always want to say this, like, there's no hate. There's no like, oh, you do it better than this or doing better than that. But I guess like conversations like this with you, and movements like Keeping House Alive, it's do that, but know where you came from and know why you're here, because other people paved it in a way that it was so beautiful, and it was harder. And this is something I want to talk to you about, because since you were in every aspect of house music, the early days of house music, promoting house music, not only promoting as a record label, but promoting as a promoter. Because in New York, if you knew such and such promoter was throwing a party, you knew exactly what kind of party he threw.
That's right.
So not only you were after the DJs or the bands or whatever they were playing, you were after the taste of that promoter.
Correct.
So I want to talk about the clubs, the doors, the bouncers. Remember how we knew the bouncers
Yeah,
before?
yeah,
You
yeah.
knew the bouncers. And you didn't have to make a line, and remember when you had to be picked. You come in, you
Yeah.
come in, you come in. I remember when I saw that the first time here. I was a kid, and I don't even know how I got in. I looked cool, and then I was like, oh, what the fuck. Liquid.
Yeah.
That happened to me, Liquid, because I went to college here, and what happened was my passport had my birth date, but it had my brother, who's 4 years older than me, year. And I never told anybody. I never told my mom. So I took my passport everywhere. I was 22.
You were
So I could come in. So sometimes, how they pick you two, but then you two cannot. And then the club is so cool that you're like, what are we going to do? Are we going to meet later? Like sometime. But I remember the first time I was picked to come into Liquid, I was like, oh my, I cannot, because I look like a kid. I look like I just came to have dinner with my parents. So I want to talk to you about like that scene of like how the city moved through clubs and promotions and DJs performing and playing together, because now we have social media and we have hooks, like this party, like because I know this and because I have this many followers, I have a better
Yep.
shot, whatever.
Everybody's a star now. on
Everybody's a
social media.
star, but are they really?
I mean, I was fortunate because since I was in the industry, I knew all the DJs, and I would, make friends with them, and I would bring them whatever promos, I had to promote. But in New York, there were door guys like, Steve Lewis, like Kenny, and wherever those guys were, I always got in because I had a relationship with the promoter. But my friends, my regular friends that weren't in the industry, they had to dress according to whatever Kenny liked, And it's funny because we would go shopping, and they would ask like, you think Kenny will let me into Red Zone if I wear this?
Wow, Red Zone.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Or Club USA, or my regular friends had to worry about that. I didn't, because having me taking promos to the DJs or that to play, I always had the in, going back to the Studio 54, or my brother knew the doorman, and imagine I was super young, my teens, and I'm blowing doors, there might be 300 people at the door at studio, and I'm just walking around in, like a kid, and And then once I got to the promoting, into producing, I made sure I knew who all the DJs were, so I could at least get on the guest list.
That's
You know?
awesome.
Yeah.
Now, talk to me about Studio 54. Because as a kid, because you were super young when you went in there, that probably blew your mind. Because today we watch the footage and we see and we hear the stories and we watch the documentaries, we see the pictures. I had one of the photographers that for Studio 54 in one of my exhibits, and like my eyes were like, wow, imagine if I was there. But you were. Talk to me about when you're that young and you see something that different,
Right.
because it was that different. Studio 54 is the before and after in the world,
Yeah. Nightlife started, as far as I'm concerned, with studio.
right?
And I was young, but I was always open as a kid, to different things, and there was something very adult about it. And like even drugs. I mean, people would do lines of coke at the bar. Studio had a big prop in the back that it was a moon and a cocaine spoon, and back then, coke was very bougie. Stockbrokers, lawyers, doctors, people with money did it, and celebrities. And the things that the production that you would see when you got to the door at studio, there may be a guy in like a Greek god outfit, sitting on top of a horse and ripped, and there was always production involved with the night, and just it was very adult. And I mean, studio also had a drummer on the dance floor that we later used to record on one of the Reel to Reel records. But to have a live drummer playing along with the disco, and that dude would play like all night, 12 hours. Back then, it was an animal. I think his name was Fred the Animal, actually. But just there were all these different elements that you witnessed, and again, I was very open-minded. You would see all different kinds of people, gay, straight.
For sure.
There was no judgment. There was no labels. Labels didn't exist. So
Nope.
if you saw people out that were different than you, you accepted that. But it wasn't like it wasn't like there was no judgment. Because we were all there to party.
Yeah.
And we all met on the dance floor. So the dance floor was the unifying thing, and that connected everybody.
I could just obviously only imagine that. And was it huge?
Yeah, studio. I think it was an old theater or something like that. It was multiple floors.
It was a NBC studio.
Yeah. So, for me, that was like the beginning of nightlife, obviously in New York, and then later on, there was studio, there was Xenons, there was a place called Bond, and then there was a 1018 with a DJ called Roman Ricardo. He lives here in Florida now, but that's when Todd Terry and Masters at Work were doing house, and all the peak hour records were all Todd Terry's. It was like That Day in a Life, the Bango, Can You Party, the Jungle Brothers.
Oh, the Jungle Brothers.
House You. I mean, that was the 1018 Red Zone era. I met David Morales playing at Red Zone. I was taking him my promos that we had, and the evolution was it was like a big either warehouse or theater that was converted into a dark nightclub with great sounds with a great sound system, and you would just go there. Sound Factory with Junior Vasquez. I would do my gig, and then I'd show up to Sound Factory around 5-6 in the morning.
Me too.
I would text Junior, hey, I'm coming.
I'm on site, yeah.
Put me on the list. And again, I was bringing either I was bringing them some music on that or white label, and I would just go to the middle of the dance floor, take off my shirt, close my eyes, and as a producer, I would close my eyes to hear the rumble of the bass bottoms, the Berthas, and see if there were bass line patterns that I could pick up and use, but it was just getting lost for hours on the dance floor.
Remember when not the cool thing, but like the best thing to do was to sit on top of the speakers?
Yeah, because the rumble of it.
That's it.
There's a club in England called Ministry of Sound, and
Claro.
they had the big Berthas there, and I'm hanging out one night, and there were these two little Asian girls with like tiger ears and makeup on their face, and they would come in and out of the Berthas. And I'm like, they were literally going inside the berthas to feel that rumble
To
that
feel
we're
that,
talking about.
yeah. I remember sitting on those big. I remember that the first times that I went to Sound Factory, and it blew my mind. Absolutely. There were times that I'm like, do I fit here? And I'm like, you do fit here
Yeah.
because everybody fits here.
Yep.
And
It's dark, and you were there to dance.
yeah, yeah. And it's dark and then it's not because it's 11 a.m.
Yeah.
And then you will go to the shores, to the beach.
You
to
put your
listen
glasses
to,
on and go
yeah,
outside.
yeah, absolutely. And I remember one day that I probably was 8 or 9 or 10 in the morning, and I was there dancing. I was looking for the bathrooms, and I see this super tall drag queen. His hair was amazing, and with deep voice, he had like a huge bowl of fruit. He was like, "Would you like some oranges?"
Yep.
And I felt so intimidated. I'm like, "Yes, I would. I'll take one." And then I took one, and I saw people like, I'm like, "Oh, these people are so nice. They're giving away fruit, not knowing why they gave away the fruit, you know." But
At Sound Factory, they had bowls
of
apples and oranges and
bananas and like. But when I saw that the first time, I naive me, I just thought it was nice, but it was part of keeping the club running because otherwise,
Yeah, I mean,
who
there are
knew?
hours and you're depleting your electrolytes.
Yeah, and you need
needed someone
sugar,
to-
you need
yeah,
protein, you need potassium, like, and you would go to the bathrooms and like, it was everybody's bathroom.
Well, Tunnel nightclub in particular, they turned their bathrooms into like part of like the on the second floor where you would go to the bathroom, but there was a bar there and people were partying inside the bathroom. Yeah, and if you had to go to the bathroom, you go into a stall. But when you came out, you were literally partying in the bathroom.
So you didn't miss the music.
No, you didn't. No.
Because like I said, like you listen to one track.
Yeah.
Like there were many tracks, but like the
It's
music,
constant.
it's a constant. So there wasn't a time where like, okay, now I go to the bathroom. Like, okay, but
You didn't miss anything when you went to the bathroom.
exactly, and that was great, and that was amazing. And I remember also walking inside Limelight and going in and going down, and then to me that was like it was an adventure. Like, there was one time that I went to see Paul Oakenfold. Imagine that, Oakenfold, like that was that, and I when I wanted to get away from the boom boom boom, then I would walk. Like, let me see what people are doing. Let me see how the people dancing, what they have, so I can probably come like similar to that next time or whatever. So it was an adventure, like and Sundays at Cielo, which it was more for like the locals that didn't party as hard on Saturdays, but and wanted to kind of listen to little Louis Vega and like kind of like tone it down a little bit, but the music and the lights and Cielo was this big.
Yeah. So before Cielo, Limelight was a block and a half away from Strictly Rhythm.
Really?
I started going to Limelight in the late '80s, and I went there for my prom because Limelight was the place where all the different people, like the punk rockers and the people that listen to quirky music, that's where they would go. And you had, if you couldn't get anywhere else, you were probably going to get into Limelight. And then that's where the whole techno trance thing exploded. And they made movies out of it with Kyoki and all that stuff. But the fact that you were in the church partying was part of the danger and the sexiness to it and the attraction, because the Limelight was a church that they converted into a nightclub, and it got all the people that were different in the city, from the village and from just the city, and all the freaks were there, and the music was appropriate for that time, and then it closed down, and then the other places that came about, but the Limelight, a lot of what changed the dance scene and the evolution of the dance scene took place there with the different promoters, and then evolving from house to like techno to trance and whatnot. That nightclub specifically played a pivotal role in that evolution.
I mean, and if you lived in New York, you had to go there.
Yeah, it was one of the 8 clubs.
Palladium,
Limelight.
Palladium.
I was there at the final night of Palladium.
No way.
Yeah, it was a cool story. So, there was rumors that it was going to be closing for dorms for
Okay.
for NYU, and the final night that they were open, Junior Vasquez, who was the DJ for it was called his party was called Arena, so Junior gets on the mic after it was already like early afternoon, and he goes, "Listen, guys, they're gonna tear this building down for dorms." So he had the guy lower all the fixtures, every disco ball, every light, and he's like, "Help yourselves to whatever you want, because they're gonna tear it down anyway." So everybody's scrambling to take a disco ball.
Memoramelia. Oh my God.
It was amazing.
I never went to Palladium because I was that young, and also I didn't live there. I grew up in the DR, and that's one of the clubs that I'm like, I wish I would have, because I have older friends, and I would hear their stories. Oh, we went to Palladium, and I'm like, I can't get there.
I managed the girl that used to do the club. Club MTV, The Grind, or something like that. Yeah. Before there were girl DJs, this DJ in particular, her name is Jackie Christie. She was like one of the top DJs in New York, and she used to do that Club MTV party, and just the scene was different. New York was different. The attention span was different, and those the 90s, I would say, were the golden years for house.
I think so.
And then Club MTV picked it up. They would shoot from the Palladium episodes of so she was the DJ for that.
Because I would watch The Grind. Actually, that's how I wanted to kind of be general market while living in the R, like kind of like see how they dress, what they listen to, where they go. But I didn't know it was in the Palladium.
Yeah, it was at
like
the
at all.
Palladium.
I barely understood what they were saying, to be honest, because
right.
I didn't speak that much English back then. But I did find it super just new and fresh and sparkling.
Yeah.
Like, this is so much different of what I see here. And not only was I living there, I was going to an all-girls school. I'm the baby in my house, So I'm in a third world country, like living like, you have a different upbringing, but when your mind starts seeing
when
other
you're
things,
exposed to different things.
oh my God! And it was like, I don't know if I like this, but I love seeing it, and I love like listening.
It gave you a
to
feeling.
Absolutely.
House is a feeling.
House is a feeling. Absolutely. Did you ever think you were going to produce? Did you ever think you were going to be a DJ? Did you ever think that you were going to encounter like something like strictly rhythm and then actually have your own? Like, when you were on your way to grow up, what do you want to be?
I originally wanted to be a graphic artist.
Okay.
And then from graphic design, I went into marketing, because I wanted to have my own advertising and marketing company. They give you this test in college, it's like an aptitude test of what you like and what you're, and I did that because, at first I was chasing money, and I went in as like a computer science major, which I don't like computers. So I'm like, stop wasting time, figure out what you're good at. And I did that aptitude test, and it was advertising and marketing. So I ended up with a marketing degree. It just so happens when I graduated college, that's when I Like to Move It hit, and Eric needed someone to run the business side of the bookings and just promote it, managing the band and him. So I went into there. He was willing to pay me what I was going to make in corporate America, and I went into the music. But before that, I had fiddled around with my brother producing, but I never thought it would be something that it would turn into a career.
Did you ever design a cover?
My Phearce Musica, my record label, I designed the album cover. I've always designed my own flyers. Like, I'll do a mock, and I've always worked with graphic artists that I ship them my mark. I email them my mark, my mock flyer, and they make it look nice. So that hasn't left me. The whole design, graphic thing, is to this day I do it.
I wouldn't think it will leave you. Like, I've been taking a break from like doing art direction precisely as my first thing, but it will never leave me. Yeah. And I love it as much as music, and I would rather just come up with the concept and do it. Like, you do it, you finish it, and whatever. But it would never leave me. And one of the things that I wanted to do when I started, like, I can do whatever I want, which I kind of a little bit did in New York for a bit, because I worked one of my first jobs, bendito. One of my first jobs, I worked right there by Limelight, in between 5th and 6th on 22nd Avenue,
Chelsea.
Chelsea. And I was working at this at Lino Press. Shout out to Lino Press, who gave me a job fresh out of college. And he was the printing company for all the promoters in New York. Wow. So we were printing for Copa, for Club New York, for Twilo, for all the promoters will go there. So in a way, I started designing something music related.
Right.
And I always said, I want to do like covers. So I did a couple of covers for whatever. Like, I don't even remember. It's been a long time. I look young, but I've been around. But yeah, I that will never leave me, the design part. So that's why I asked you, like, did you ever design something, or maybe like
all my own stuff. I've always either designed my flyers or my logo or my album cover or a CD release, and then I would send it off to a professional graphic artist.
Claro, finish it up.
They would just make it look professional and polished. To this day, I still follow that routine.
And when you ended up at Subliminal, right? Mm-hmm. Eric calls you over and you say, like, listen, I will leave this if you give me this, and then I'll roll up my sleeve and let's get organized. What was it like to organize something? It became bigger because you came in at the beginning, right?
So originally Subliminal was a P&D label of Strictly Rhythm. In other words, they had Subliminal existed, but I was at Strictly at the time. The label handled all the pressing and distribution. That's why it was a P&D. I remember Eric sending me a contact sheet of all the different Subliminal logos when they came up with it. And he's like, Ani, let me know which one you like the most, which logo should I use? And it was like 20, 30 variations of Subliminal, of the logo that is now. Mm-hmm. And I told him, listen, I know which one's the right one, but I prefer you pick it because it's coming from you. This is like your
That's
baby.
Your kid, yeah.
Yeah, so, but I would do all the reports for the label and all that. So when I resigned from Strictly, I went back and he had pulled the label from Strictly. So I went and I set up the label. I hired like 15, 20 employees. I set up all the departments. And we were like a proper label now where we didn't need anybody to do our manufacturing and distribution anymore. So it wasn't until I got there where it became like a proper independent dance label. And I set up all the departments, the marketing, the advertising, the manufacturing, the A&R department, the distribution, the mailroom. Like I hired all those people, and then we went on to go to another level in terms of label.
That's hard work.
Yeah. I mean, I learned it at Strictly because when I went to Strictly was kind of like a mess. So I basically took it upon myself to start organizing the whole label. I organized all the contracts. I found out what all the writing and publishing splits were for every record release. I set up a database that included all that information. I went and department by department, I went organizing it. And then by the time I left Strictly, there was an entire department with 3 people that didn't exist prior to me being there. I handled all the licensing, the music publishing, and the royalties. All the hard stuff.
Yeah, all the hard stuff, because I think they were busy being, what they being, like producing and like putting stuff out. And like, and we were talking about something like this earlier when we were on the phone. Like, when you're an artist, you need to be an artist, like you need to surround yourself by people like you that help you when you start growing, like what is the legal way of doing this thing, because you need it, especially when it's a record label. And when you have royalties and you have other people behind you, and then stuff, especially back in the day, you couldn't stream anything, and you have to buy, you have to press your tracks, and you have to promote it and go with your things under your arm and be like, to the right people so they can play it. So it's hard work, and as an artist itself, it's hard. So I'm assuming that when they started all this thing, and probably you didn't even know, nobody knew how big it was going to be. So the mess was probably.
Yeah. I mean, to have to like figure out all the writing and publishing splits to every song that they had released up until that point, you have to make phone calls. I'm reading contracts. I had started out helping Strictly with mailings. Like,
Oh, wow.
we were already putting out records on Strictly, but I would go and help them out with the mailroom. And I would take the records and, stuff them, and, I would help the mailroom. And then from there, when Real to Real blew up and it was on Strictly, there was constant interaction with the label between, me as a manager on behalf of Real to Real. But like I said before, when they decided to get bigger management in Europe, I went and worked at the label directly. And, I learned a lot there. So when I went to Subliminal, I already knew how every ins and out of the label went, how to who to hire and what each, department did. And what made me such a unicorn was that I could DJ, I could produce, and I knew the business side of it.
You could
So
run the back of the house.
I could get on the phone with a lawyer and negotiate a contract. They would always tell me, "Why don't you become a lawyer?" I'm like, "I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be an artist."
You are an artist.
Yeah. So, but I wasn't able to. Like, I developed all the administrative skills between corporate America and running these labels, but when I decided to start my own, that's when I decided to leave New York, because I needed to separate myself from from all the guys, because I knew they would always call me for my advice. Ani, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? So I tell myself I quit the best job in the world when I was running Subliminal. And I came down here and I took everything that I knew about the business, and I just applied it to myself. I started my own label. My first single was massive all over the world, and I've been blessed. As you get older, you start to reflect on your life, and you realize,
how much you've done.
I've been given so many opportunities to play at the best clubs, to work at the best labels, to work with the best artists. I've signed big records that went on to change the world. I've signed singers that have gone to have wonderful careers. When that was happening, there was never a pause to think about what you were doing.
I bet.
Because, you finish a project, move on to the next. It wasn't until I got older and my friends started dying off. Peter Rawhofer, for instance, we were real close. I started helping him out when he started his own label. And,
He was great.
You start to reflect on all these wonderful people and all the things that you were associated with. And I pinch myself, because, like, what did I do to deserve this great life,
Absolutely. You were blessed, and you were chosen by the gods to do this. And that's one of the things that, when we started talking about, because we met through a mutual friend who's here today, Christina, who had the great idea of saying, like, you guys need to talk.
We're playing this Saturday at the
At
White Elephant in Wynwood. The way we played, now it's her turn.
Now it's her turn. So shout out to Christina, who actually had the
Christy
vision.
Hearns.
Christy Hearns
In
in
the
the house. And she said, like, you guys need to talk, because what you like to talk about, he has. And then she started talking to me about you, and I guess she did the same to you, because then you and I got in contact, and we got on the phone, and we were talking for a long time. And then I said, like, hey, if I do this again, because that day I didn't know I was going to come back. I actually applied to be back here in Miami Community Radio towards the end of it, when the applications were open, because I was just like, I was going back and forth of, a bunch of other things. Anyway, but one of the things that I like about this, and talking to a person like you with a career and a journey that you've had, is like, dust off those things, because not only is it interesting for us and the people who are listening, and for me to learn from your point of view, but also for you to remind yourself of your journey, because like you said, when you're doing it, you're just doing it.
There's no time to put. There's no. You're so busy.
Yeah.
And that's what I realized looking back at my career. Like, there was never a time to stop and smell the roses, because you were always on to the next record, the next project. And it wasn't until I got older and I started reflecting and doing interviews like this where I realized, and hearing the way people would talk about me, I was just like,
Is that me?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is me.
And I feel super blessed and super fortunate to have been at the right place at the right time, and then to work with so many different amazing producers.
And become one.
Yeah, and then become one, yeah.
And good that it kind of like everything meshed to my next question, because you started talking about it right now, because I was about to ask you, what made you move here? Because you moved here like what, 2002?
2002, yeah.
Okay, so you moved down here in the peak of New York going, because yeah, the 90s were the golden era, but like, by that time, yeah, people already had an idea.
Yeah.
People were already into it. Like we already
It
knew.
was it was a solid movement already.
Yeah, we knew DJs by their names and so on and so forth. So, so what made you move down here again?
So a couple of reasons. Number one, in 2001, I went to meet them in France. They have a conference for the business people behind the scenes.
Okay.
So there's Winter Music Conference that happens for the DJs
Uh-huh.
and the producers. And then in January, there was this conference called Midem that is for the suits, for the people behind the scenes that run the business. And I went there with a Walkman, a cassette player, a cassette player and headphones. And I had produced this record called Alegria that nobody knew that I had done it. I kept it really hush-hush because I didn't want there to be a conflict of interest between what I was doing on my own and Subliminal. And my specialty in the music business back then was music licensing. So I had the contacts from all the best labels from around the world. And I set up meetings every day, and I would play them my track on the Walkman. And when I came back, I found like 30 offers from the biggest dance labels in the world. And that's when I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to like leave Subliminal and start my own thing. But I knew that I had to get away. And then in addition to that story, 9/11 happened, and the city was super, depressed. They kept showing the towers falling down on TV, and it was New Year's Eve. I'm in my living room, and I just got this wind, and it was like, you got to get out of here. And I'm like, where am I gonna go? And I'm like, let me go to Miami. The weather's nice, And I came to Miami. I threw away everything I owned. I packed my studio, my records, in an aero bed. And I was living in a big house in Coral Gables with my studio set up and this aero bed. And I had a beach chair that they gave me when I opened my first bank account here. And that was it. I was like, I told the doorman, I go, listen, I'm leaving to Miami. I'm starting anew. I don't want this energy. I don't want to take anything with me other than my studio. But in the garbage, you'll find a kitchen set, a dining room set, everything that you need for your house. It's in the garbage. It's not even dirty. I just put it there neatly. Go there now, and you could take sofa, dining room set, everything. I came and I started new here in Miami.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I bet you found in Miami, because Miami, I mean, if we had like the New York house, aquí está el Latin house, you get like a little more flavor because of the influences, especially back then. Yeah, we did have the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans over there and the Colombians and all that, but they all have that New York flavor that even though you do hear it in the congas and in the percussions and in the trompetas and like all that, aquí, like you have the real, like it's more raw, like it's more direct. Let me just say, like the transition of you hear more that, and you're about that because you do love your house, your Latin house.
The first record, that Alegria record, was a samba house Brazilian record.
There you go.
And I'm like, I'm doing this Latin thing under the name Sol Amor. I'm like, and Miami is about that Latin thing. I'll move there and I'll continue producing Sol Amor records, and it'll be accepted more. And as far as the language is concerned, it was simple. But, I came down to Miami and I hustled and I took all this knowledge that I knew of running the business side of it and promoting myself. And, my sound was different than most DJs that were locals. It just happened to go, well for me. And I never turned back. And, little by little, I, filled up my house with things. Now I have to have a storage unit because I have too many things.
That's what usually happens.
Just that journey as an artist to go to a new city and start new, I found that very romantic. So, and I took it as a challenge. And, I was younger, I had more energy. I would go to the beach 2-3 times a day, promoting myself, my parties. I started my own parties. I was working at Crowbar, for Backdoor Bambi on Mondays, and I was a DJ on Saturday as well. And, little by little, I just, I took all the knowledge that I had learned, and most DJs didn't have that knowledge, where it was both from the background, from the business side and the club side and the music side.
Claro, you had it all.
I had an unfair advantage, and look, it went well for me. Like I went from 0 to 100. Playing
Nice.
playing that level on Fridays and Crowbar Saturdays and Monday.
I'm assuming because you came that early and you came with that knowledge, not only the music and the producing and the DJ side, but like also the the back of the house. You kind of had the floor to yourself in the sense of you were different.
Yeah, it was
You knew
very
what
different.
you were doing.
Yeah.
You had experience, and you were giving here something that they didn't hear before.
Yeah, yeah, no. I mean, as a DJ, we absorb what we hear in our environment.
Absolutely.
And house being one of those main markets for house music. New York being one of the main markets for house music, and I had me having played a role in labels like Strictly Rhythm and Subliminal. Coming to Miami, you know, knowing the back of the house stuff, the business side,
Yeah.
and listening to the best, Louis. When we were doing the Subliminal party, I would book Louis Vega, David Morales, Frankie Knuckles, Peter Rawhofer, Basement Jacks, Bob Sinclair. All I was playing with the best DJs of the world.
Yes, you
in
were.
The world. So as a DJ, being exposed to that high level of talent. You could only play with these guys if you're able to stand if you're able to stand in a room with them.
Absolutely.
And that makes you a better DJ as well, and that experience and that being exposed to that level of talent. So when I came to Miami, I just took everything that I have absorbed, and now I developed a New York Miami sound.
Absolutely.
you know.
And did you start Fierce Musica down here or
No, I was in New York right before I moved on here. So I started the label in 2001. And then 9/11
Right before,
happened.
yeah.
Yeah, right before. So the follow-up to Alegria, I mean, it was like I think 2003 or 4, and I'm like, how am I gonna produce something that's gonna follow up that record because it was so good.
good, so big?
So I went to the Delano one night, and a friend of mine that played Backdoor Bambi was DJing, and he played this like Afro-Cuban record, and it just lit up a light bulb in my head where like okay, now I know what to do. So I booked a session on Monday and Tuesday, and I produced all the music on a Monday. On a Tuesday, we edited it and I rearranged it. I burned a CD copy, and I just put it away. So Winter Music comes along, and Eric Murillo was playing at a Crowbar. So I put the demo in my pocket. And that night it was like around 3:30 or 4, and kind of the energy had gone down a little, and I just went into my pocket, and I tell Eric, hey, play this for me, and he just took the CD, popped it in, and when he played Babalu, it's called, the place went absolutely crazy. I mean, it was like there was a jolt to the room, and the energy came back up, and he turned around at me and smiled, and when I went to get the CD from him, he's like, "Oh, you gotta give me this record. You gotta give me this record." So I'm like, I laughed, and I'm like, "Listen,
What a good feeling.
yeah, as a producer, you should have that experience through most of your career. That's a feeling that I get to this day, and I don't take it for granted. I still that moment when you do a demo and you play it for the first time at a club,
And you see the
and
reaction.
you see the reaction that never leaves you. So I made an agreement with him where he liked the record so much. Why don't we just do a P&D? You take a percentage, and I still under the Fierce Musica label, but you're doing the distribution and the pressing. And now I've come up with the follow-up to that one.
Which
And
is?
It's an album, actually. I'm working on my album now. But, there's like, 10 more follow-ups to that. So instead of putting them out separately, I'm going to put out a few singles, and then I'll release it as the Solomore album.
What do you like best? I mean, I know they're different and there's a song by itself, but between producing, DJing, and being a record label owner, is there an order of liking?
There's something special about running the business side of things, but as a creator, as an artist, I still like when I produce a record or a remix, when I play it back, I'm still like, where did this come from? Like I'm like I consider myself like a portal, and from wherever in the universe it comes through me. I do it, but then when I hear it and it's complete, there's like a separation that happens, and then I start listening to my own music, like what happens here, and I start dissecting it because I don't know how this magnificent, journey and thing that takes place that's producing music. I still, I don't know what makes it possible for me to do it, number one, and how it all comes together and why it's so different and what happens here and there. And, I have my unique way of doing my drums and my arrangements and all that. But that feeling of ecstasy that you hear when it's yours and when you play it out and you're watching people on the dance floor react to it, that to this day, I never take that for granted.
I can only imagine. And when you say that you just don't know what happens, you just put it on you press it, you produce it, you start putting
The composition together, all the parts together.
I'm assuming that you're just channeling.
Yeah, it's funny because when I get into that creative process, if I need a horn player or a guitar player, something will happen in the that'll put that person in my path.
That's another thing that I know by doing research about you before today, is that you like your instruments to be played live.
Yeah, I like the human element
Of
working with different artists and doing it live because
the feeling.
The feeling, everybody has a soul and an experience, and they take that life experience and whatever instrument they're playing, whether it's horns or drums or percussion, that's all coming through. So I always I'll tell a producer or a musician, this is what I want, but at the same time, let's do a take where you could just freestyle it and do whatever comes from, whatever comes out, just let it out.
Just let it out.
And I'll take the best parts, and that's when magic happens, in my opinion, where a machine can't necessarily do that.
No, because they're just doing patterns.
Yeah.
You tell them what to do, or you pick
Copy
a
and
pattern,
paste,
to
copy and paste.
copy and paste. I mean, it's not the same to have a conguero,
That's right.
and like maybe the hand landed here, and then the next one in here,
That's
but
right.
that has that
That
flavor,
sensitivity,
that texture of human life. And the other day when we were playing together, you were telling me a story how you work with, and I don't remember the name. You're about probably to say it now, el trompetista.
Yeah.
And
Teddy
you told him,
Millette, yeah.
vete,
Yes.
go.
He's
Just
playing, and I'm like telling him, bring it
Acá,
down, bring
aquí.
it up. Energy, like, it wasn't coming out on the mic, but, he was playing and I was talking to him. And, that's what a producer should do, where you're directing it. But at the same time, I know that I was capturing his essence.
absolutely.
He's
You
the
were working together.
Yeah, he's the music director for Miami Sound Machine, for Gloria Estefan. So the dudes are amazing. But me producing the record, I knew what I wanted in my head, and it manifests through him.
Claro.
And he gave me exactly, what I wanted. And
like
that
you
magic between humans, that a machine can't replicate that.
Claro, and you knew what you wanted, but you weren't gonna do it yourself. You needed
I
you
couldn't.
needed him.
I needed him. Yeah.
But he needed to know what you wanted, so that
right.
communication right there, and just to get it. And sometimes then you give the direction, and you're like, it's even better than what I imagined, because it was a live person doing it, and it had that little, like those little layers of that. Is there something about what's happening today in the scene that bugs you? What is it that bugs you the most?
Well, whenever people like
No
me,
judgment, right?
No,
It's just, yeah.
When people like me talk
Uh-huh.
about the nostalgia and the way it used to be, people, the young generation is quick to say, "Oh, you're just being a hater," you're just being a hater. I don't have anything to hate about. I've been blessed, but with the advent of AI and sample packs and all that, and the shortening of the attention span, and it becoming now about how many followers you have and your social media and how you act in the DJ booth, if you're jumping up and down and acting like a monkey, all the things that didn't matter back then.
No.
That you couldn't even do with a straight face because nobody would take you seriously. That part is what's become front and center. And for people like me, that the music did matter, and quality, and just capturing your essence. Everybody had their unique sound. Morales had his sound, Louis had his sound, Roger had his sound, we had our sound, Harry Romero had his sound. Everybody had their own unique sound. Now it's more about what's popular, and let's do what's popular. I've never fallen into that trap. So you could hear something that I produced in the 90s, or you could hear something I produce now, and it remains relevant,
It remains relevant, and you have a style, right?
Yep.
And although it's not the same, but you're like, that's Annie.
It's remained current, if that's even a way of putting it where it's not dated.
No.
The way I've produced, it's never been dated.
No, and it has some sort of branding. It's not like you sound the same. It's like there's a seal of
There's
Annie
a fingerprint.
Phearce.
A fingerprint.
Yeah, absolutely, which I think is great. Like you hear David Morales, for example, you know it's David.
You know, it's David. You hear Kenny Dope or Little Louie, Masters at Work, that's them.
Listen, I think it was for the book fair. They had a street party.
Yeah, I did that one time.
Yeah, and
Louis was amazing.
Louis was amazing,
Yeah, I
as
was
per
just like-
usual.
I was like,
Kenny was playing with Rich, with Medina,
Medina, yeah.
and let me tell you, I will be there, like dancing. That would come. They did start like super like tribal and
Yeah.
whatever, and then you go and
You go through the ages.
and
You
then,
start traveling.
yeah, and not only that, and then when you got to the more dancey part, I could be like you said, I could be with my eyes closed, looking, not looking at them, and I'm like, that's Kenny,
Yep.
that's Kenny,
Yep.
because you know Kenny,
Yep.
and that New York house has that flavor, and it could be a new track, it could be an old track, and it has that New York house flavor, which I fell in love with, and I will always talk about, and I will always play. And I don't want to mimic because I don't want to mimic anything, but like it gives me this sort of like nostalgia, and
Absolutely.
it feels warms my soul,
Yep.
and I actually say it proud, like yeah, I'm Dominican, I'm a New Yorker, and I like
Right.
that kind of house.
And
Not-
New York was at the forefront of that.
Absolutely.
Although, the evolution from freestyle, which was mostly predominantly, Latin people producing it, to house, which included, people from Chicago and African Americans producing it, meshing with the Latin side and even the white side, but the culture unifying under this thing called house music.
Yeah.
And then the Europeans picking it up and falling in love
Yeah.
with it. It became massive first in Europe
Uh-huh.
than here.
Yeah.
So you would go to Europe and make travel, you get booked, and you get paid a lot of money, more so than here.
Yeah, because it became quite something internationally or big everywhere else but New York.
Yeah.
But he was born in New York.
Yeah.
I want to make that clear. He was born in New York. Annie, is there something you're working on right now that you can share, that you want to share? I know that you're working on a bunch of stuff. We talk about this all the time, but like,
Well, this I'll play. Where's the volume? Here.
okay, yeah.
There we go. This was my first remix that won #1. How loud do I put it? Is that good? Volume wise?
You can put it up all the way if you want. All right? There you go. Yep.
Yeah, so this came out of Strictly Rhythm. In '93, it went #1 on the Billboard Club Play chart. My first remix, and this was like, imagine, this is the early days of house, and walking into a club and hearing something that you did to play at peak hour,
Yeah.
and then you would travel, and then people expected you to play, this record. When I had done this record originally, the drop. I did it. This record was done by Eric Murillo, and he didn't want to have the drop the way it is. He was gonna sample the acapella, and I had to beg him, yo, let it go, bro. It'll be okay, And you'll see. Then we're gonna sample this. He was afraid of.
Claro.
And I'm like, bro, let it go, man. He's like, nah, man, I don't want anybody sampling my record. And I'm like, trust me, let this part the way it is. 'cause
Yep.
I feel it. It's gonna happen. And that's what made it.
And it
a hit.
happened. And it happened.
Yeah, this is where it all started for me in terms of like, we had produced a few other records, but this was the one that people started to know who
I remember this. I don't know what who would have thought? Told me this little girl from the DR be sitting here with the Annie Phearce, telling me about the story of how this song came about, and it was yours, and it was like you were doing all this thing. I think it's freaking great and amazing. Like.
But let me tell you something. We played together 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You're a badass DJ.
Thank you.
Like,
So much.
it's funny because I'm like, I think I found the female version of you. Your house, the beats that you were playing, and it just had that feeling. And I'm like, yeah.
Thank you.
And again, when I told you to play with me, I know that you were doing the show and you love house music. So I'm like, you'll be fine. And we didn't talk about
Gracias, gracias. It means a lot coming from you, and also because I've told you this. I play out of passion, out of my heart. I'm basically self-taught, and I just and I dig and I listen to people also, not only the track. And I try to learn like the things, but I trust the gut of like, wait, where are we going?
You brought that feeling. And it's funny
Thank you.
'cause, I hear and play with some people.
Yeah, for sure.
But even with you brought a unique sound to you. Like I'm not listening to you and saying, "Oh, she sounds like this guy or that guy." No, your style and the way you put the tracks together, it's unique to you because I haven't heard another person play that style and that.
Thank
that
you.
groovy and just that. Your selection of music and the way it came together, I was like, damn. Okay, and like, what's that and what's that? But I respected that you actually, you brought it, in your own way.
In my own way. And that play sometimes, my favorite, and sometimes it's like, it's just like, where are you going to put PATI? The good thing about me playing music is that, I take it seriously, but, I know that the whole thing is, you gotta know how to navigate it, how to get gigs, and how to get like in front of the right people, and how to play in the. That's another thing. Play the right rooms with the right people.
That's right.
I mean, I don't always just want to play. I don't want another gig. Like I have to wake up early in the morning and be in a, I have a regular corporate job where I have to be Patricia. I'm not Patti, I'm Patricia, But the essence of house and how to play it, and me digging for music, and me trying to finding my own sound, finding my own, and listening to a lot of disco and a lot of funk and a lot of, rock.
Yep.
Like the other day I was playing bachata, man. But that feeling of playing something and moving the crowd and being with the right people in the right room.
That's a talent.
That is, and it's so much fun to go through that as an artist. You know what I'm saying? This is my only face of my other face of like being an artist and being a creative. And I tell you, I enjoy it so much. It brings me so much joy, and it brings me so much happiness. And it, when everything is going crazy on another aspect of my life, music saves me. House music, this project saved me. Literally, I felt myself going downhill to a depression, and I said, Patricia, no.
Corporate America and the mundane aspect of it and what's expected of you,
it could do that.
It could do that.
But also, I was going through like some personal stuff. I lost my dog. I lost my favorite uncle. I lost, I wasn't working. I didn't want to do anything. And I said, like, if money wasn't the issue, what would you do? And I always went to music. And I didn't know exactly what to do. And like you said, you channel, you put it out to the universe. Then I saw Miami Community Radio looking, they had the applications open. And I said, well, what do I know? I haven't been behind the mic, my thing isn't really in front of the camera. That's why you don't see many videos of me. Like, I do jump and dance when I'm playing, but I'm more like on this side, and I do it for the love. And then it materialized to this, and I'm having such a great ride.
It's a way to express yourself and release yourself in the music, and you get lost in the music, and you find it's something that you love to do. That way of expressing yourself through playing records is where you find that peace and that comfort zone for that particular moment in time.
Absolutely, and I would not change it for anything in the world. My journey is by no means close to yours, but my journey is my journey. And let me tell you something: house is a feeling. With that said, you mentioned, I need one of these, and I said,
I want to teach you.
I said, I know somebody, so I got a little gift for you.
Oh wow! Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
One for you. Yeah, because we want you to represent. You're one of those that keeps house music alive. Like, that's the least that I can do, to give you a shirt.
That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. And it's black, so I know you like your blacks.
I have my little Guns N' Roses shirt right
because you're a punk rocker, just like me. There's also a sticker there. Of course. No, thank you for coming. Also, the people out there who are watching the show, a way to support this movement. You can buy the merch, not you. You deserve it. Yeah. But if you want to support, because Art Basel is coming, we're getting ready, and we're always, looking for time is flying. You can inquire on our Instagram, and we can hook you up with like hats and shirts and tumblers and whatever you want. But I think it's time we kind of play some music, because we've been talking about music, but what we do best is play la música. So everybody in their houses and whatever you are, if you're listening and you're liking this content, thank you. Thank you for sticking. No, amigo, let me tell you something. It is an honor to have you here. The conversation today was fire. I could keep talking to you about it, but my producer is telling me that we're running out of time, and that's her job. Thank you, Annie. Another Annie.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So everybody out there, thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for following. Thank you for going to our shows and our get-togethers and pop-ups. See you next time. We'll let you know when the next episode is. And right now, we're just gonna play you some música. Give it away.
You want to go first?
No, you're my guest, my friend. Like, hey, how can I do that? I know that you're a gentleman. You would like for me to play, but no, you are the
You
guest.
want to play the first one?
I could play.
Play the first one. Let me cue something up here.
See, this is old school. This is what happens.
Yeah.
We're like, mira, let me play you this.
Play some New York Dirty House.
Mira. No, I'm gonna play. I want to start from the beginning. Let me do this on deck one. Mira.
Yeah.
Señoras y señores, this is Keeping House Alive. Today's guest is Annie Phearce, the one and only Annie Phearce. I am PATI, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you like today's content. Wait for more. I love you. House is the feeling, and the feeling is joy. That's the name of this song. I love you all. Enjoy.
My love's understanding. supe nada más. ¿Qué fue de ti? Hoy conjuro un ave mensajera que vuele alto y te traiga los secretos de mi corazón.
fresca y se escapó de tus labios y se metió en mi cabeza. Es el beso con que sueño cuando las penas me acechan, que me lleva al mismo cielo y a la tierra me regresa. Y que reza, reza, que reza, y aunque ya no tenga cura, que el recuerdo de su beso me lleve hasta la locura. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Que tú eres mi consentida, la niñita de mis ojos, la que me endulza la vida, la que calma mis enojos, la que se pone más linda cuando la llevo a una fiesta, esa que siempre en mi cama con los ángeles se acuesta. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Y que digan en la radio que yo te quiero de veras, que lo digan en los diarios y después de la novela, que en un letrero que diga que como tú no hay ninguno, que lo digan en la esquina, que lo digan. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo. Sí, 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 este amor es tan profundo, que tú eres mi consentida y que lo sepa todo el mundo.
If you're still there, thank you so much. And welcome to Keeping House Alive World. We'll see you next time. We don't know when that next time is going to be. Actually, yeah, August 3rd. Ani, it was a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
Got
everybody.
everything going on here.
We got a great thing going on. Have a good night, everybody. We love you.